and welcome back to Continental Club, where we discuss the hottest topics in European football. No McCubs today, he's on holiday, so joining myself and Henry, it's Zach Jalab. Let's give a big Continental Club welcome.
Woo, woo.
Woo! Fresh
Thank
from
you.
Qatar, fresh out of the Sky Sports News studio this morning, discussing all things Jean Felix, etc. How are you?
Not too bad, thank you. Not too bad. Hopefully, I'll do McCubbin proud in his absence. He looks like he's having a lovely time over in Spain. You're also back, mate. That's the bigger and more important thing. You're back.
I did miss Continental Club last week, actually.
Sitting there in Nairobi watching Lions, and the first thing that comes to his head is, I wonder what the boys are talking about on Continental Club.
I tuned in full 55 minutes now. Henri, how are you?
I'm great, yeah, still here, nothing changed. Great to have you again. I told people to be mean about you last week after you ditched us out, but you're even more famous this week.
Yeah.
Famous? No, not at all.
What a blessing! What a blessing,
Thank
my
you.
friend.
Just too much loving. Let's call some teams bad.
Yeah,
Love
absolutely.
it. Okay, today we are talking about great teams having terrible seasons, or big teams at least. Obviously, we are approaching the second half of the season. We're still not really into the second half of the season because I think most teams haven't quite got over the threshold yet. But there are some big sides that are struggling, not least Henry Hill, Sevilla. This comes in from @Norwegian Spursy. What a disaster of a season. I think if we had one team to talk about in 40 minutes, it would be these guys. Terrible.
Yeah, I think it's maybe their worst ever start to a La Liga campaign or something like that. At least in the last 50, 60 years, it's going that badly for Sevilla at the moment. And it is shocking because they've been kind of the consistent side of La Liga, of almost European football for a long time now, haven't they? I mean, they finished fourth for 3 consecutive years. That hadn't been happening since the 50s. They won 4 Europa Leagues in the last 9 seasons. Say what you want, that's serious form. And this isn't a team with a massive budget relative to kind of certainly Premier League sides anyway. To pull off 4 Europa League titles, that's a pretty epic result. And yet, as you say, they find themselves 17th after 15 games in La Liga, only ahead of 18th place Cadiz on goal difference. And we've already seen Lopetegui, he's left the club. Obviously, he was going for a tough time, I think, personally.
Yeah, with his dad.
So, yeah, and I think Wolves is viewed as a fresh start. I've been really impressed with Wolves
Yeah.
under Lopetegui so far. And he did a great job with them up to this point. But, yeah, I think their summer business has really sort of done them dirty in many ways. I mean, to lose Diego Carlos and Koundé, they're 2 centre-halves who were brilliant, weren't they? There's a reason that everyone wanted them last season. Two excellent defenders. Koundé obviously starting for France, often a right back as well, straight in that Barcelona side. We haven't seen too much of Carlos at Aston Villa, but I'm sure once he's back to fitness, we will see. But yeah, Tanguy Nianzou from Bayern. This is Marçal. He came through the door from Galatasaray. Marçal, I was expecting a bit more actually. I thought he was pretty decent over in Galatasaray, but he's been really poor. And Nianzou too, so they've had a really inexperienced defence. But yeah, it's in attack where they're genuinely just shocking this term. I mean, no team has scored more than players scored more than 3 goals in their side so far. I mean, Eric Lamela, Rafa Mir as well. Rafa Mir, who was pretty decent up until the season. Don't know what's happened to him. En-Nesyri, let's not forget, he's been slightly injured on and off. Chance he might leave.
Yeah, linked with another move away to West Ham.
This January. I hope he stays and sort of helps drag Sevilla out of the hole they're in too. So yeah, it's really not very impressive. 13th for shots, 17th for shots conceded. That is really bad. 19th for tackles per game. They just look like a team that's been sort of caught in the headlights because they're so not used to being in this position, do they? They've given up leads so often. I remember watching the game against Rayo Vallecano where the second that Vallecano got a goal in that game, Sevilla just fell apart, and this was at home. So yeah, they've been really poor. Sampaoli has not made the impact that a lot of people were hoping since he's gone in. I thought that was a really good decision to get him back in a stadium and a city that he's used to being in, but that's not worked too. And neither has the sort of arrival of Isco, joined on a free. That's been a disaster. Alex Telles, he's not been great either. Marcos Acuna, Kasper Dolberg, I mean, his loan's now been cancelled. He's now gone to Hoffenheim. That says it all really about sort of the trajectory of his career at this moment in time. So yeah, it's all gone wrong for Sevilla, and it just shows if you sell all your best players and don't replace them properly, then it can come back to haunt you.
It's hard at the moment. I saw you mention earlier, Dougie, kind of about not just that, like goals in the league are drying up. Like the league itself, its quality is definitely kind of diminishing. I think in comparison to other leagues that look like they are expanding. I mean, Ligue 1 looks like it's getting better and better week in, week out. I mean, this sounds like a club, or seems like a club that have gone through not just a bit of a turnover when you lose maybe one star player. They lost essentially their whole core to lose also a Campos, who was fantastic as well going forward for them, but their whole back line, like, it's a tough job, and I think we've sat here before over the past years and complimented Sevilla with their signings, but that's much easier to do when you've got a core and a core going through the team and are able to look at their transfer strategy, and it's much easier integrating one player than it is 5 or 6 in positions that were so key to you over the past couple of seasons. It's not an easy job at hand, is it?
It's not even as if they're like languishing in 10th though. It's not. I mean,
I
although Sociedad, Betis, these guys have both got so much better in the last few years. Villarreal now a consistent team in and around the European places. It's not as if Sevilla are suddenly getting pushed out by these guys. They're below Almeria, Girona, etc. Like the real lower. It's a disaster. It's a disaster. It's not as if they're struggling to compete against the big boys. They're just genuinely off across the board, and that's not good enough.
And it was only this time last year that I think they were first in La Liga, or at least were in the build-up to Christmas, and then dropped off and Real Madrid came through. But over the last few years, as you say, like we've seen Villarreal, Athletic Club, Real Betis, like sort of push for that sort of fifth area. But generally, Sevilla have generally held on by a bit of a distance in force. So to be this bad, and probably their only remotely successful signing has been Alex Telles, who's been alternating with Marcus Acuna at left back. But other than that, they've either left the club or failed to make an impact. So it's been a really shocking summer, and it just shows you another club we're going to come on to in Chelsea. If you get an entire summer worth of business wrong, or none of those signings really click, you can get into major troubles. On the topic, at Ben Hewson said Chelsea, and Zach, it'd be remiss of us not to talk about Chelsea. I know you spent probably the last few weeks talking about them.
The only thing I'm good for.
No, far from it.
joking.
But yeah, we do want to heap a little bit more misery on you for the next 5 minutes. I mean, there are multiple factors at play here. What do you think is the most important one?
I mean, we've spoken at lengths, I think, about this. I think the biggest one is just that there's been maybe a slight confusion or idea of what Chelsea wanted to do. I think these are the new owners were guys that haven't been in this situation before. They've not run a football club. Maybe they don't quite understand it. So there is a little bit of learning on the job, and I think you can't really blame them. You're only going to learn by doing it and by making mistakes. I think people have to remember how many players left as well in the summer, and not just players, key players. Antonio Rudiger and Andreas Christensen were centre-backs that won the Champions League, that played in the Champions League final. They were key to Chelsea, especially Rudiger. Rudiger even more so under Thomas Tuchel. I think there's a huge correlation between him leaving and Tuchel's last few games, or this season failing, which obviously resulted in him being sacked. And so, yes, obviously Chelsea spent a lot of money in the summer, but then a few of those signings were very much kind of guys to replace. So like Koulibaly coming in, replacing a centre-back. Like, out of that 300 million, I do actually wonder about how much of that money was spent on actually improving the squad rather than just getting players through the door. Chelsea were in a position as well where other teams knew they had new owners, they had money to spend, they had positions that needed to be filled. And so I feel like maybe a little bit people attack the transfers a little bit too much. Not saying that obviously they were right. Obviously, the Koulibaly transfer, I think, overall could have been looked at a little bit differently. He was a guy that maybe was just starting to go past his prime. Yeah. We might have even saw his a little bit of a decline this season with Napoli.
Yeah, I am shocked by it, to be honest, though, because I mean, even last year at Napoli, you say, yeah, maybe he was slightly going off the ball, but he was still, over the last 5 years, the outstanding or one of the outstanding centre-backs in Serie A, but he just hasn't got going. Yeah,
and look, it's a different league. It's tougher. I mean, naturally, the Serie A is a bit of a slower league, which can be dealt with a little bit easier against forwards. Whereas in the Premier League, when you're coming up against quick transitional play as well, counter attacks. Chelsea like to dominate the ball. When they lose the ball, they're getting done on the counter very, very often. So I can understand where flaws are. Look, there's still a player in there. That's for certain. There have been moments when I've seen the ball at his feet and he does look good, and that's kind of the element I want to see a little bit more of. But it's not just on Koulibaly. Like this, I think maybe is I think this current season is actually the past few seasons all kind of coming in on itself. If Chelsea didn't have the Champions League win, I don't know whether people will be talking about the past few years as in such a good light as it has been, because that was maybe a little bit more of a flukier win. Knockout football, anything can happen. But there have been maybe a few signings where there wasn't maybe a position for them in the squad. It didn't make sense. I think obviously when Havertz was bought, it was kind of said that this is a guy that if we don't get now, Real Madrid are going to go get him next season, but maybe the position wasn't actually there for him to play in. And so I think, the new owners have kind of had a lot of basically thrown onto them, and to a degree, like that's also been done by themselves as well. But have had to deal with a lot more issues that maybe they didn't kind of put in place in the first place. I do think you are starting to see a beginning to Chelsea's future strategy of getting these young players in. Andre Santos from Brazil, Chukwuemeka in the summer, Fofana, both Fofanas, so on and so forth. So I think you are starting to see that. I just think I'm not defending Chelsea to a point where I'm like, look, it's not as bad as everyone's saying. It is bad. Like they shouldn't be where they are, even with the money that they spent. But I also can see possibly like a future where hopefully this all works out for the better. I mean, I don't know how you feel, Henry, about Chelsea. Like, I think maybe from a fan's point of view, I'm trying to look more at the positive rather than just the negative. But look, the season, I think, flat out hasn't been amazing.
Chelsea have been prone to a season like this every now and then. This isn't like this hasn't happened before. Sometimes you just have to mildly hit the reset button. And I think one of the most amazing things about Chelsea is their ability to brush this off as a one-season blip most of the time. We've seen them do that. Whereas a team like United has sort of got caught in a quagmire of disappointment for an extended period. We've seen Chelsea often bounce back a season later. It just takes a bit of rejigging of the squad. It just takes a few transfers here and there. You're right. I mean, listen, everyone keeps saying that you've got loads of players all playing in the wrong position, etc. Maybe that is true. I mean, Havertz was playing on the right wing predominantly during his best time at Bayer Leverkusen. He's never really occupied that position at all at Chelsea, and it's just going to take someone to go in there and make sense of it. But yeah, I think it's really harsh on Potter and to an extent on Clear Lake Capital to be like digging them out so far this season. It's a competitive league. Okay, they probably could be doing better. I mean, I think with a bit of time, I don't think it matters if this is such a disastrous season. I think people have such short memory. They can bounce back and be doing brilliantly next year, and we'll all be saying, well, it just needed time to gel into this process. I genuinely believe that's what's going to happen.
No, I think that's completely understandable as well. And also, it's like the whole Potter situation. Is this a guy also learning in a different world to what he's used to? The big players and big money being spending. I mean, the guy's now got João Felix at his disposal. If you had said that a year ago that Potter would be managing João Felix, I think we all would have been like, that's a lie. There's no way that can happen. What's he going to do? Go to Brighton? And so it's an interesting one. I'd like to think things will improve, and at least if not now, then the future looks very good with the signings that are being made.
Just quickly on the topic of Chelsea, Dukes, what do you make of the Aubameyang potentially to Barcelona news, potentially replacing Memphis, who's gone to Atletico? The triangle of dreams.
Yeah, I mean, Aubameyang was clearly Tuchel's guy. I think of all the late deals in the summer. I mean, there was that story the other day that Tuchel didn't even know Zakaria was coming in and had to remember his name in the meeting when he met him, all that sort of stuff. Not sure on the validity of that, but still, it felt like Aubameyang was very much Tuchel's man. Knew him from his time at Dortmund, excelled under him at Dortmund. A long, long time ago now, though. He's almost an entirely different player. Hasn't worked out at Chelsea at all. But for me, Chelsea can't bring in João Felix, who's not really an out-and-out number 9. He's more of a creative playmaker behind the striker, ideally, or on the left, or even on the right.
Do you think he'll play on the left?
And then get rid of Aubameyang, who is an out-and-out number 9. Broly is obviously injured until the end of the season. So why strengthen? It's taking one step forward to go one step back for me. Unless Aubameyang is throwing his toys at the pram and wants to leave, I just don't see the benefit of that whatsoever. Briefly, final point on Chelsea. I think it's easy to be like, look, it's been a bit haphazard so far, but it almost had to be. Like, they didn't get their structure in place during the summer. It's not always easy to even sign people, the directors of football you want, because they've got contracts or they've got families and they don't necessarily want to move at the time you want them. So it's very easy to be like, look, how disorganised it is. But things don't always go A, B, C, D. Sometimes you have to jump around a bit. And it has looked a bit chaotic at times, but I'm sure they'll get it right eventually. And I think people are just too quick to jump on them.
Agreed.
Having said that, they played Fulham last night. It'll be interesting if they've lost to Fulham. You guys will know the result of that. They then played Crystal Palace on Sunday, then Liverpool, Fulham, West Ham, and then they got their Champions League tie against Dortmund, which brings me nicely onto our next topic, Borussia Dortmund, coming in from @Panthradman. Now, in the summer, we talked about whether Dortmund could not necessarily challenge for the title, because that always looked like a big ask after Haaland, but be a more well-rounded side, finally get rid of those defensive deficiencies, particularly on the counter-attack, particularly on set pieces. And they signed Schlotterbeck, they signed Süle, they signed Solly Ozcan from Cologne, the defensive midfielder that really pulled up trees there for a bargain price as well. And they signed some very exciting attackers. Adeyemi came in for 30 million euros and Seb Haller. And now Seb Haller, obviously everyone knows with his cancer diagnosis, that's completely outside of Dortmund's control. And they've really, really missed him, to be honest, because Adeyemi hasn't hit the ground running at all in a Dortmund shirt. Mokoku's really actually nicely developed, but he can't really do it by himself. And Daniel Marlon isn't probably an out-and-out number 9 in that he's not going to score you 20 goals per season at the moment. Maybe he will in some day. So it feels like Dortmund have taken a bit of a step back, and they are 6th in the table. They're only 2 points behind 4th place Eintracht Frankfurt. And I think, to be honest, they probably take a Champions League knockout tie, which is what they've got now, Chelsea, and a top 4 finish this season, in my opinion, and then build from there, and then hopefully get back to challenging for titles next year. But at the moment, it's so tight in that area between, well, 2nd and about 7th, really, that Dortmund could quite feasibly finish quite low down this year, which would be a bit of a disaster, especially in the summer, when we were all saying, what a successful rebuild, that's kind of how you should sell a superstar and replace him amongst your side, and it felt like they were going to get better, at least as a more well-rounded side, but it hasn't really happened. So last year, they're averaging 2.5 goals per game. That's dropped to 1.7. And their defence, which you'd expect to pick up some slack, has gone from 1.5 goals against per game to 1.4. So not a significant improvement that's going to make you, be able to cope with compensate for the loss of a 30-goal-a-season striker. So it's really unfortunate, really, and Dortmund are now under massive pressure. And Edin Terzic, needs results to improve fast. The good news is Seb Haller made his comeback the other day from the bench in a friendly, which is phenomenal to see, one of the feel-good stories of the year. And I think he's hoping to start or feature along, I think they've got Augsburg this weekend in their first game back, which would be a hell of a story. And of course they've got Jude Bellingham back from a World Cup where he's absolutely shone, so he'll be full of confidence. I still back them to finish in the top 4, but they do need to sort it out in the meantime. Right, let's quickly talk about another Bundesliga team. Henry, at Foz Ressel, says Bayer Leverkusen. Now, this maybe feels a bit harsh for a terrible season because they were picking up before the World Cup.
Yeah, I think they've been fine. I mean, they only won 2 of their first 12 games, which obviously is very difficult, but they won 3 in a row, scoring 9 before Qatar, and yeah, they've looked a lot better. Let's bear in mind that they've got a bit of a longer break, don't they, until the League renews. But yeah, I think you have to give Xabi Alonso a bit of time and credit in his first senior role in management to really get his ideas across, and clearly it's going somewhere. I mean, the thing that Bayer Leverkusen have, which I think Dortmund may be struggling with sometimes, because as you said, their attack has been so hodgepodge. Modeste has, I think we need to touch on, been really, really, really poor. At least Bayer Leverkusen have the players that once they get going, they're going to set it alight. Patrick Schick, DRB,
Strange Patrick Schick.
Yeah, I think he's a brilliant striker. I'm sort of surprised if he's not moving on in 2 years. So one more shot at a really sort of big side. But yeah, I mean, when you hear this, when they're rated as the 8th best side by XG, they should recover and be fine this term. Like I said, Hincapié in defence, they've got loads of star players in that side. They just need to get it together, and it's quite tight, the Bundesliga. It can really flip. But I mean, yeah, I don't think they're in danger of having sort of a Werder Bremen or whatever and just getting really sucked into this horrible relegation zone, which we seem to see loads of big sides in Germany doing.
It's weird. It feels like whoever is like the 4th side to get into the Champions League each year in Germany, whether it's Gladbach or Leverkusen, really suffers in the league, really falls off. And I think Wolfsburg did that a few years ago as well. So Bayer Leverkusen.
I mean, there seems to be a correlation between all the teams that we're speaking about, that they've lost a few big players the previous season, and had it affect them this year, and maybe not necessarily replace them in the way that they could have. Obviously, you mentioned Dortmund with Haaland, and Haaland's such a big player. I mean, losing Jadon Sancho the year before, it was tough, and obviously he was fantastic there, but he's not the level of Erling Haaland, as we've possibly seen with the career moves at City and Manchester United, and the same with Leverkusen. I think it's tough to, when you are so reliant on maybe one player in particular, like maybe possibly Patrick Schick this year, obviously still at the club, but maybe if they do have that one season where things go down again, because Patrick Schick's whole career has been up and down, a fantastic Euros, and then a great season in the Bundesliga, then it goes down for a season. It obviously can affect you really, really badly. And with the way the transfer window is nowadays and players costing even more and more, I think there's so much pressure on them to perform consistently. And with the rumours too, like Schick in the summer was being constantly linked to different clubs. And so it's about that, it's having that consistency, that same basis, having different players coming to the side. Callum Hudson-Odoi, as you mentioned, like, it's been okay. And so, yeah, I think it's just those little changes that can happen in the summer that end up having big results.
They will have Florian Wirtz coming back, hopefully sometime
huge,
soon, which is going to be massive because he's obviously the next big great star coming out their side. I'm happy to take the next one quickly. FC Zurich from @Wigu the Man 99, and this is a genuine disaster team having a disaster, isn't it?
This is Sevilla levels.
This is. I mean, it's astounding when you hear this. They won the Swiss, I think it's called the Super League, in 2021-22, finishing 14 points clear of Basel, which is pretty impressive. Also, young boys as well. They're back at the top at the moment. They've got some decent sides at the top end of that league. This season, they are bottom of the 10-team league. They've only won 2 of 16 games all year. That is shocking. That to go from top to bottom like that, I don't remember a team doing that in a very long time. I've had a little. I'm not going to pretend I know. I'm an expert on FC Zurich.
You watch the Swiss League all the time.
To be fair, I do love it. But their manager has gone to Hoffenheim. He went to Hoffenheim in the summer and is doing an all right job at Hoffenheim this season, in and around the 5th, 6th zone. And they've just kind of imploded without him, really. They've already on to their third manager, if you include the interim guy who was there. And also, and this is quite interesting, they sold Wilfried Gnotto to Leeds in the summer. And
so he's on the FD. What's that group?
He looks fun, man. He looks really good.
He scored 8 goals last season in the league. So not like a prolific striker by any means of the imagination. There was a bit of turnover and transfers in that Zurich side. But yeah, Gnotto, I mean, he looks good, doesn't he?
He looks exciting, yeah. I mean, considering how young he is, I mean, that Leeds side have a few players which you look at and you think, oh, these could all become like fantastic. I mean, even Brendan Aronson looks really impressive. Tyler Adams is another one. But I mean, Leeds in general aren't doing too bad.
Yeah, no, absolutely. FC Zurich, if you're Swiss, let us know what's gone on there because, yeah, we don't watch it all the time unless you're Henry. But yeah, let us know what's gone on there. And final point about Leverkusen as well, it could get a bit worse before it gets better as well because Moussa Diaby, I don't think is going to stick around for another year because his form hasn't really dropped off. And there's always been talk about Newcastle in particular being interested in him. So yeah, maybe he'll leave.
They'll get a good fee though. That's the thing, right? Like it's just about being able to spend it on a good replacement.
And I'm sure Jeremy Frimpong will also leave in the next 18 months as well. So slightly difficult times there. Okay, let's move on to Gab LFC's suggestion of Inter Milan. Now I think this is a little bit harsh. I mean, they haven't been great this year. They are 10 points off Napoli, but I think that's more to do with Napoli being exceptional. Like they, hadn't dropped any points until they played Inter Milan, hadn't lost a game until they played Inter Milan recently and lost that game thanks to their Edin Dzeko goal. But Inter Milan are through to the knockouts. They qualified ahead of Barcelona. I don't think that can qualify, and in a group with Bayern Munich, of course. So that can't qualify as a terrible season. And before the World Cup break, they were actually picking up a little bit of form as well. They were up and down in sort of November, October, September time, but look to be getting it a little bit more together now. But yeah, some form issues with some of their key men, of course.
Injuries,
Lukaku, a lot of people talking about his performance against Monza at the weekend as one of the worst they've seen. So that's not great, of course, but yeah, we'll see what happens there. Zach, quickly, Deathstroke33 says Lyon not been great for them.
Yeah, I think one of the really big interesting things about Ligue 1 in general, there's been a few teams that have come maybe a little bit out of the blue. Lens obviously had an okay season last year, or a decent season last year. They've really gone on beyond. Lyon just feels like there's a few players there that are having a bit of a tough time at the moment. Houssem Aouar is one who's constantly linked to several different clubs throughout the summer. There was a Cherki, the Algerian Cherki, who's another one. There's a few players there that, as I said, has been linked, and they didn't quite get the move that could have worked out for them. Obviously, also bringing back Alexander Lacazette isn't the most exciting thing.
He's done well. He's done well for them. He's held them up this season, in all honesty.
Which is fine. However, if you're looking to try and do what these other teams that have done so well in bringing players through, or buying young players and developing them, and challenging the likes of PSG for the title, I don't think Alexandre Lacazette is going to be that guy that's going to compete with Kylian Mbappe, Neymar and Lionel Messi. I mean, they've got 2 wins from 7 league games under Laurent Blanc, who's taken over. They're 8th and 20 points off of PSG. It's not going to be a pre-season. Look, there's still so much time left where you can have a run of 10 games and you can come back very, very quickly. So yeah, at the moment, not pretty. Be interesting to see what happens in January if they bring anybody in. I know they're also financially not in the best of states
they've got
at the moment.
They've got a
as
new
well.
owner. They've got a new majority shareholder that's come in and promised to try and boost them up. But I mean, they are in a rut because obviously they didn't get any European football last season either. And if it looks like they're going to go 2 years without any form of European football at all, that's going to be really quite difficult and devastating to already, as you kind of say, fragile French accounts after everything that happened over the past few years. So Lyon needs to figure out a way to get out of this hole. The one thing that they've got going for them is they seem to be able to hoover up some of the best young talent in French football, and they always seem to be able to produce players that can come through. So I'm not worried about them in the long run. But when you look at, like you said, kind of Zach, some of the teams that are emerging out of nowhere, Lorient, etc., to really kind of take the traditional positions of the big teams like Marseille, etc., at the top of the league, Lyon should be worried because they have a budget which should eclipse all of these sides.
Yeah, they've sold some good players in the last few years as well. Joachim Andersen, Bruno Guimaraes, like Tanguy Ndombele,
Losing
of course,
Bruno
was great
is
for
tough.
Lyon as
Losing
well.
Bruno is
So,
tough.
yeah, big questions for Lyon and Laurent Blanc to answer. Guys, which of those teams do you think is having the worst season other than FC Zurich? I think it's probably Lyon. And how do you think they'll go about fixing it in January and in the next few months? Let us know in the comments down below. And let's move on to our big match predictions. Okay, it's time for big match predictions. And after picking up no points the week before, hell of an effort really, we needed to up our game last week. Did we? No, not a bit. Villarreal versus Real Madrid. Villarreal won. No one saw that coming. So no points for us there. Milan versus Roma. We all backed Milan, either 1-0, 2-1 or 3-1. It finished 2-2, of course, with Roma coming back with two late goals, having played absolutely tragically bad. And then let's go Madrid versus Barcelona. Henry backed at Atleti. The Cubs went 1-1. I went 3-1 to Barcelona. It finished 1-0 thanks to that Ousmane Dembele goal. So 1 point to me in the entire week. So not great, guys. The scores are as follows. Doogie on 31, Henry on 21, McCubs on 17. Our editor, Mike Atkins, shout out Atkins, what a guy, is going to get McCubs to send in his suggestions for this week, but we are going to get Zach's contribution and predictions. Cool. But you're playing for fun. No
I
points.
love it. I love
no
it.
Points. You're playing for respect of the Continental Club community.
I do need it.
Yeah. Okay, nice. Let's kick off with RB Leipzig versus Bayern Munich, which actually takes place in a few hours' time, Friday night at 7:30 p.m. It's first versus third, 6 points between them. The Bundesliga is back. Zach, what are your thoughts about this one?
An exciting one. This one, it'll be end to end. Obviously, we saw a lot of these guys at the World Cup have quite good tournaments. I mean, in particular, in my head is Gvardiol, and he's playing in a side that have really improved, considering they were 12th after 2 wins in just 7 games. They've only lost 2 out of the last 15 games under Marco Rose, including 4 Champions League games too, where they are now playing Manchester City in the knockouts. That'd be a really fun game. Obviously, they've played them a few times over the past few years. Bit of a miss is that Nkunku is out still at the moment. Obviously, he picked up that injury just before the World Cup. It really was a shame. It'd be interesting to see what would have happened in that final if Nkunku was available to play in that front line. It could have possibly gone the other way and not all been relied upon Kylian Mbappe on that final day. Obviously, Timo Werner is their next top goal scorer after Nkunku, who's got 12 goals on just 4. So look, if you were a betting man, I think I'd probably be leaning towards Bayern München. But you never know. Look, with the way things are going, and after that long break and a kind of a resting period, a decent resting period compared to the Premier League, anything can happen.
Nice. Yeah, there are big injuries at Leipzig, but there's arguably bigger ones at Bayern, Henry. Lots of key men missing.
You're right. Sadio Mane, he's obviously out. Still sad about that, I must say. Manuel Neuer, Lucas Hernandez, he's always out. Mazraoui, actually, I mean, he was just sort of growing into.
He's in the World Cup. I think he's got COVID, hasn't he?
COVID.
I think he's got COVID. Yeah. Throwback. Same as McCubs actually a couple of weeks ago.
Yeah.
All the best do get it.
Yeah. Mazraoui and McCubs side by side at last. But yeah, it's weird with Bayern. Like they sort of. 1 week I thought I was saying they're having a terrible season. Yeah. The next week we're saying they have a great season. I mean, they've only got 1 defeat in 24 games this term. That's 1-0 against Augsburg. The Bavarian derby, though, so a big defeat. And then, but they won 6 straight games pre-World Cup, scoring 24 goals. That's kind of how they started, then completely fell off, got back to it. They're only 3 points behind where they were roughly at this point last season. So yeah, I think that Nkunku missing for Leipzig is a bigger deal than all of the players that are missing here, because Pavard's just going to come in. They're fine at centre half, really, aren't they? I mean,
goalkeeper might be a slight issue, but
Sven Ulrich.
Sven Ulrich's fine. He's fine. He's no worse than Peter Galacki at the other end of the pitch. Oh, maybe that's unfair. I don't know. But yeah, I'm backing Bayern to win this one. I'm going to go for 2-1. Yeah, 2-1. I don't think it's going to be particularly... I don't think it's been as exciting as it could be.
Okay. I mean, it's difficult after that, such a long break. I mean, what was it, for 14th of November was that last game? That's almost 2 months ago. McCubbs' prediction will come up on screen at some stage. Zach, what do you think score-wise?
Well, because mine mean absolutely nothing, let's have a bit of fun.
Go for it.
Yeah, why not say a draw?
Go for 2-2. Go for 2-2.
I was thinking 2-2, thank you very much. 2-2. They're just going to, RB Leipzig, play them on the counter and have a bit of fun with Timo Werner, why not?
Nice. Someone hasn't watched Continental Club for a while because that was a cursed scoreline. 2-2 never comes in.
It will today, lads. It will today.
Okay, love it.
Probably will.
What am I thinking? What does the Iron Brew think? I think Bayern, to be honest. Look at lots of their players came back from the World Cup quite angry, obviously with Germany getting knocked out so early.
Musiala.
Musiala was playing with a lot of fury in that last game, and Sane and Gnabry and Kimmich, they'll be pretty devastated with how it went. So I think they'll be full of motivation. They've got that Champions League tie against PSG next month, which is so mouth-watering. So I think this is where Nagelsmann will be judged these next 4 or 5 months, because last year didn't probably go as well as people expected, but he got a sort of first-year grace. He really needs to start competing for the major honours now. And I think they'll win this 2-0. Yeah, easy as that. Right, let's move on to Napoli versus Juventus, also taking place tonight. What a feast of football you have. Hope you don't have any plans.
The Friday football feast, you could say.
Absolutely. Get a burger, get a pizza, get stuck in.
Some fried chicken.
Fries. Okay.
Fries. Yeah, I was trying to think of another F1, but I couldn't get it.
Nice.
Sorry.
Friday, 7:45 tonight. First versus second in the league. 7 points between them. Henry, Juve have put together a little bit of form. Not necessarily the most entertaining form, but wins.
In the office, it's been quite lazy just to slag off Juventus. When you actually just look at them, they're doing great, like really, considering where they were meant to be this season. They've won 8 straight games in Serie A, as you say, scoring 14, conceding 0. I mean, that is less than 2 goals a game, so it's not prolific scoring rate. But if you're not conceding, that doesn't matter at all. I mean, it's almost exactly what you expect of Allegri football. They're playing pragmatic football and getting the job done, and I kind of respect that in many ways. I think Kostic has been huge throughout this period. He's just such a brilliant fullback, one of probably the best ball delivery that you'll see in Europe. But yeah, it's stunning, as you said. They only won 2 of their first 9 fixtures this season. Obviously had a disaster in the Champions League, lost in Israel infamously, and now they're playing Nantes in the Europa League next year. I think they could win the competition if they wanted. Nantes who are having a shocker, by the way, to go to our first section. But yeah,
cool back.
Stick them in.
Throw back to them.
Well, yeah, I mean, listen, I mean, it took 2 late goals to beat Cremonese this season, who, by the way, I feel really sorry for. They haven't won a game all season. And every time I've watched them, they've been fine. They just look a bit like starstruck, Cremonese. But yeah, Milik's been good since he's come in there. I mean, I think they could catch Napoli cold here. I really do. I mean,
wow.
Napoli beat sort of a really out of sorts Sampdoria side, who are also having a shocking season. But it's genuinely, I think Juventus could spring an upset here.
Away.
It's just that defence, really. I mean, either this is going to be a draw or Juventus win in my head. I can't see Napoli actually taking the 3 points.
Oh, get your prediction in there now. Come on.
I'm going to go 1-0 Juventus.
1-0 Juventus. I thought you were about to say 1-0 Napoli. What the hell have I just listened to? Zach?
Yeah, I mean, Napoli have managed to bounce back after their 1-0 defeat to Inter Milan. As you mentioned, Sampdoria. Osimhen just looks like in fine form. I'm so interested to see what happened with him in the summer, if he will stick with them. Or maybe it all depends what happened with the league, if they manage to win it, and where he thinks that, oh, you know what, I've done it, I can move on, or I've done it and I want to stay and keep doing it. So that'll be really interesting. So yeah, obviously they've got a few big games coming up. Juve in this one. They've also got Roma within their next 3 games. They've played and beaten already some of the other big dogs, Lazio, Milan, Roma, Atalanta, already this season. So some good teams to have already got done for the first half of the season. They've also scored 13 more goals than Juventus. They have really looked fantastic this season. If I was I was going to say the betting man one, I've already used that one.
A gambling man.
A gambling man, yeah, indeed. No, I think I'd go with the fact is at home as well. I think it's quite a strong point here. I think actually the fans and playing at certain stadiums. I've been to a couple of games in Italy, and they make the fans in Italy are outrageous. So I would go with a 2-1 Napoli win with 2 goals for Osimhen.
Love it. Yeah, his future is absolutely fascinating. I mean, Aurelio De Laurentiis did kind of ruin Koulibaly's potential move about 4 years ago by saying he was 100 million euros. So I think it's going to take a monster fee, but I'm starting to think he's kind of worth it. I think he's exceptional, really. I absolutely love watching Victor Osimhen. So
to United, maybe.
Oh, there we have it. There we have it. And also, Juve, it's worth mentioning that Chiesa's come back and been excellent. I think he's made 4 appearances, only played about 100 minutes, but he's got 2 assists in that time. And has generally just looked back to his electric self. And having missed so much football since that Euros triumph in 2021, like, he's full of motivation. I think he'll want to make a massive impact with the eyes of the watching world on this game, Friday night, under the lights in Napoli against the league leaders. Huge possible moment. But having said that, I really want Napoli to win because I think they are the best side in Serie A right now. And if it suddenly turns into a 4-point gap between Napoli and Juve, with all Juve's history of getting over the line, albeit not recently, I think that becomes squeaky bum time.
Yeah, absolutely.
To paraphrase Sir Alex Ferguson. Actually, not paraphrase. He actually used that term. Anyway,
we're chucking all the words out, all the
cliches. Yes, I'm going to go 2-0 Napoli. No, I'm going to go 1-0 Napoli. What did you say?
I said 2-1.
Okay, I'm going
McCubbins will be on screen.
And McCubbins will be on screen now. Right, let's do our final game. Rennes versus PSG, Sunday night, 7:45 p.m. First versus fourth. There's 10 points between them. Zachary Jalab. PSG, disappointing loss to Lens last weekend.
Yeah.
What do you think? How do you think their sort of mood in their camp will be? Because there's obviously quite a difference, like Mbappe versus Messi.
Massively disappointed. I think fair play to the Lens as well. They've been playing some really, really nice football this season. Got a few players who I think will be interesting. Again, mentioned it a few times with the summer. I still love that video for Fana when he commits his future to them. Like that, there's like a beauty of that in football that I feel like we're missing sometimes. So it's really nice to see that. This is a game that Lionel Messi could be back for as well, which is a huge factor. If they have a front line containing Messi, Neymar and Mbappe, it's quite hard to go against them, especially after what Messi was doing at the World Cup. That form, you feel like, and what he did have before the World Cup for PSG will come back to them. And so, yeah, I think mentally, look, I think sometimes people make a lot of out of this stuff. Obviously, that Mbappe and versus Messi in the final, and so on and so forth. Some certain pictures that look a little bit that raise questions. I think people make a lot out of that. And once it comes back to the league, they get on with it. And when you are Kylian Mbappe, you can kind of agree that Lionel Messi is a pretty good player that you need to be playing with. Who's only going to get you assist after assist. And so, yeah, look, I think I sit here and it's very easy to not very easy. But I just think with Lionel Messi being back, that's the key one. Because he may rest him. He may rest him. There's obviously that possibility. But if he is back, I would go with a away from home 3-2 win to PSG.
Oh, nice. Couple of goals conceded. Yeah. Could well happen. Kimpembe still out.
Yeah, PSG's defence is still a little bit shaky,
I mean, Sergio Ramos made a big mistake at the weekend, failing to cut out a pass, and then Danilo Pereira passed to Fabian Ruiz under a lot of pressure, which kind of gave away another goal. So they were pretty sloppy at times, but I totally agree with you about the dynamic between Messi and Mbappe. I think whenever they are the two best players in the world right now, and they play in the same team, and people just love to create aggro. It gets clicks, it gets likes, it creates engagement around football and articles, etc. And they did it for years with Messi and Ronaldo. And to be honest, after the first couple of years of them being in La Liga together, I think they just kind of just respected each other. And kind of, it motivated them, sure, but I don't think there's genuine hatred there. In the same way that I don't think Messi and Mbappe probably hate each other. They are rivals in some ways, but they're also teammates, and they've got the same ambitions for this season in their club shirts. Henry, Rennes.
Oh, yes. Here we go. They've been great this year, haven't they?
Really solid season.
Really like Bruno Genesio. Yeah, they're always there and thereabouts, aren't they? In recent history, they were on an 11-match unbeaten streak prior to the World Cup, which is doesn't matter where you are. That's pretty impressive. They've won one, lost one since the league returned, and yeah, I think they're only 2 points off Marseille in third, who really. You never quite know what performance you're going to get out of them at the moment. And I really like some of the players they've got, certainly in their forward line. I think Martin Terrier, he's their main man. He's got 9 goals and 4 assists. This is the second season in a row. He's absolutely firing for them. And it took him a while to get to this point in his career. He was
24, 25.
Yeah, I feel like he was talked about for a long time, but he's really exploded since he's gone to Rennes, which is great to see. I mean, Guiri, who we were saying, we still cannot fathom why he was sold by Nice in the summer. He's a brilliant player. Kalim Wendo, who was so exciting for PSG and I think at Lens last season on loan, and then Borussia, who I think he's been consistently really good from midfield too. So yeah, they've got a great sort of spine of attacking players going forward, and I'm excited to see what they're going to what they can do in this game. I kind of agree with you. I think it's going to have goals. I think it's going to have lots of goals this game. I would definitely consider tuning into this one, just because it could be quite end to end. We saw what Lens could get at PSG last week. They made some really horrible mistakes, which kind of shows that some of the fringe guys that come in are, without that consistent football, surrounded by so many stars, sometimes they can sort of feel a bit awestruck, I think. So yeah, I wasn't too impressed by PSG. I'm going to go for... Sorry, I'll go for my 2-2. I'll put my favourite 2-2 out there. I don't think it's unreasonable that Rennes could pick up a point here.
Okay. I don't know. It's so rare for PSG to lose 2 games in a row in Liga, particularly under Galtier now. Can't see that happening. I think a draw is a push, to be honest. I think they'll get over the line. 2-1 to PSG. Did you say 2-1?
I said 3-2.
Okay, doesn't really matter what Zach says anyway, because he's not in the league. Although we could have a little asterisk with you at the bottom, maybe. Your 1 week score, which never moves again.
Well, we can see my expected after these 3 results.
You could catch me in the cupboard up pretty quickly, I reckon. So,
Love it. Guys, that's all we've got time for Continental Club for this week. Thank you very much to Henry Hill, and thank you very much to Zach Jalab, our special guest. Welcome back any time when he's got the time in his busy schedule. Yes, what would you recommend everyone goes watch us now? We did a talking point.
We did a talking point, talking about João Felix and his loan move to Chelsea. We talk about how he can fit in at Stamford Bridge. We also speak about Wout Weghorst, his move from Besiktas back to Burnley, then back to the Premier League for Manchester United. So check that out as well. We've also got the studio fully working now, so we're getting you guys at home in to check it out. We've got Jay, the Chelsea fan, and also Mina, the Manchester United fan, in to chat about all of that stuff. And then check out our Snapchat, Instagram, TikTok, Twitter, all of that good stuff to keep yourself up to date on every single platform.
Nice. Yeah, that's a very good point about the studio, because we will be trying to integrate that in Continental Club Extra in the next few weeks as well. So if you are a fan of a particular club, or you're particularly knowledgeable about a certain player, DM me on Twitter, respond in the comments to this YouTube video, say what you want to talk about, and we'll try and feature you, because it's really nice to get fans involved. Yeah. Henry, anything from you?
Well, you covered a lot there, didn't you? I would just say go look at our explained on how Croatia can produce so much football. It's brilliant. Over, I think, almost 70,000 people have almost watched that so far, which is so great for like a little a video about essentially quite a niche topic. So yeah, if you guys appreciate that content, let us know what else you'd like to see us cover.
Perfect, guys. Remember to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and have a great weekend. Stay safe. Goodbye.